Namaskar, Professor.
Namaskar. Can you hear me?
Yes, very good.
Yes.
Very good.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Should I share my screen right now?
We will wait. First, I will introduce to you.
Okay.
Then I have a sharing screen here. What I will do,
Okay.
I will share the screen.
Okay. Then every time I'll have to say next.
Yeah, that's simply say because
Or I'll try to share. If I don't succeed, you do that. Because what happened, I've made some changes in
oh,
the
okay.
oh.
I made also changes. So some
Okay.
spelling corrections and everything I did it.
I know that's what I did
Yeah,
also.
great. No problem. So you can also share the screen. What I
Yeah.
will do,
I'll
I
try.
will,
If I don't succeed, then you do.
yeah, I will co-host like that speaker, uh, co-host, make a co-host. Okay, I made a co-host. You can click
Okay.
on that
Shall I do that right now or later?
later.
We,
You
we'll just try.
first you have to
We'll
accept.
just try.
First you have to accept as a co-host.
Acha, how do I do that?
That's the thing. There is an already something came out for you, co-host.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's automatically accepted, I think. Yeah,
It's like automatically accept. Yeah,
yeah,
good.
great. I'm waiting for some more people to join, and
No problem. How many people have registered so far?
we have 96 people registered.
Not bad.
But a lot of times people they register and they don't show up,
Mm, I know.
and we have some limited number of people are there. Let me stop recording. Okay. Now, welcome you all. Before the starting of this session, I would like to pray Lord Dhanvantari, who is embodiment of good health and longevity, and Om Namami Dhanvantari Madidevam Surasurairvandita Pada Padmam Loke Jararubhaya Mrityunasham Dataramesham Vividaushadina Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. It's a great honor and privilege to introduce speaker, Professor Dr. H.S. Palep, Hanumantarao Palep, who is a Western trained medical doctor, is a now MD, OBGYN, and DGO, DFP, FICOG, GFAM, and having an honorary post professor at Grant Medical College and adjunct professor at RA Medical College, Padar Medical College for more than 2.5 decades. He has been a teacher and examiner for undergraduate and postgraduate courses in the specialty of obstetrics and gynecology in both modern medicine and Ayurveda at Mumbai University, India, over the 3 decades. He is the only recognized teacher at the Mumbai University who is qualified in the modern medicine as well as Ayurveda, a renowned gynecology surgeon, an eminent obstetrician, and infertility specialist. He is currently a national professor and visiting scientist at Hopkins Institute of Mumbai, India. I request all of you to mute except the mute. Okay. In summer 2007, he was chosen by the Ayush Department of Government of India, conduct short courses, training courses in Ayurveda for medical students at prestigious US medical schools like Boston, Harvard, Johns Hopkins. The training program was jointly sponsored by the API, Association of American Physicians of Indian origin. His tirelessly research led to the discovery of Ayurvedic solutions for various ailments. I request everybody to mute yourself. And Ayurvedic solutions for various ailments and stubborn nature that are compliance with the modern scientific parameters. This has resulted in a number of highly popular standard Ayurvedic formulations such as Sujat, Torchinil, Pentaphyte, and others, manufactured by Dr. Palep's Medical Research Foundation Private Limited, a research-based organization which he has been successfully heading since 1997. The Medical Research Foundation has held more than 100 CMEs, educate modern medicine practitioners, specialists to spread the message of the scientific basis of Ayurveda. He has written 2 wonderful books, which all the Ayurvedic graduates, postgraduates, even the medical students, we highly recommend. Those books are Scientific Foundation of Ayurveda, Scientific Foundation of Ayurveda, and Dosha Dhatu Malavignan, which is called Integrative Human Physiology. These are the 2 special books written by Dr. H.S. Palep. And today's topic, we are going to discuss about the integrative human physiology, Dosha Dhatu Malavignan, understanding of modern eye. The subject of integrative human physiology is all about the holistic philosophy of Ayurveda that includes man's outer environment and his inner self. So, yada pinde tata brahmande. So, physiology operates more epigenomics and genomics and its products and explained in terms of dosha dhatu mala vignan. This is a very crucial part. A lot of knowledge which was explained in the ancient textbooks in a form of a Sanskrit slokas and stanzas and hymns and everything. And as the things are modern, modern eye is looking for that, scientific eye is looking for that. What is this dosha? How the dhatus, malas, agni, and all this, the basic foundation is very important. A lot of people thinking about that, okay, allium satyvam, that is a lasuna, is good for the cholesterol. That is the only way they are looking for the fragmented way knowledge. But the basic concepts are very, very important to understand as a modern eye, modern physicians. That is the only way we can explain more clearly. So we are very fortunate to have such a renowned scholar and educator and teacher and professor with us, Dr. H.S. Palep, sir. Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste. Namaste. Thank you very much for such a long introduction. Let us now talk about the subject. Before we talk, let me share the screen. Let me try if I can share the screen. Select the window of an application we want to share.
Yeah, it's not able to share.
One moment, I'm just trying how this asking basic share sound optimize. Select the window. Whiteboard is saying.
No, not whiteboard. Share screen like that. There is a box is there. Let me do it for you, doctor.
All right. Yeah, oh, 1 minute. I just come. One minute.
Okay.
Share. Yeah, there is. I didn't see that. Share. Yes.
Yeah.
Now I will share the subject. How do I get my moment?
I think you are taking pencil.
No. I'll just go back 1 moment. That okay. Yes, yeah. Now share. Here. Yes. Yeah. Okay, got it.
We can't see.
You can't see?
No, we can't see. The white screen is showing up.
Uh,
View options.
can you not see now?
No. We can see only white screen.
Acha, how is that? Then I think you let only do it.
Yeah, I will do it from here.
Yeah.
This will stop screen. Yes. Okay. Share. Okay. Can you see now, doctor?
Yeah, I can see. Yes, I can see that.
So
Yeah,
now I made it a
yeah.
little bit of a.
Yeah. Okay.
So today's topic on the integrative human physiology, dosha dhatu mala science and mala vignan, Dr. H.S. Palep, MD, DGO, DFP, FICOG and GFAM, Mumbai, India. Let me share these things and what is going on here.
Next slide.
Yeah. I'm going to do next slide somehow. Yeah, because
Yeah. Friends, I am so happy to be with you this evening. I thank Dr. Shekhar Annabutler to have taken so much effort to organize this program. And I recently released this book, Dosha Dhatu Mala Vigyan. And I tried to see this very foundation of Ayurveda, Dosha Dhatu. Unless we understand these doshas, dhatus, mala, we cannot understand Ayurveda. And as what we understand physiology, human physiology, and to connect that to Ayurveda and integrate the language of modern physiology, modern human physiology, is what I mean integrate human physiology. I'm trying to integrate the concepts of Ayurveda into a modern scientific language which modern people can understand. See, was a great dilemma while I was a student at a Podar Medical College for me, because we were taught both Ayurveda and modern sciences, modern medical science, in a parallel basis. There was no integrative thought how to connect these two. That was never the case. The problem started when I became a professor in a modern medical college and also at Ayurvedic college, teaching the same subject. How do I teach the same subject? Now, to give one simple example, if I have to say that an embryo forms by fertilization of the egg by a sperm, that was very simple in a modern medical college. But when I come to Ayurvedic college, it's a totally different issue altogether. When it is such an issue comes, how do I explain the Atma concept? That is something was very, very difficult for me. So I had to find the ways and means. I will come to that little later. But that's exactly how I learned how to correlate both these things. Next slide, please. This is my book I've shown you, the one which is published by Popular Prakashan. You know, you all know that we are a country, when somebody tells you you are good, we become very happy. Otherwise, we don't know what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses. We want endorsement by others. If you remember the history, right from Ramayana, Anjaneya Swami was to be told that what is his strength by somebody else. Then only he can fly to Lanka. Same thing happened with Swami Vivekananda.
Your
He
video
was
is started, Andrew.
is not coming.
Yeah, we can
Are
see.
you not able? Yeah. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear? Yeah, you hear me now? Yeah, yeah. So what happens is that somebody else recognizes your merit. Here I have put a slide which says your traditional knowledge base appears to be the most valuable resources that India has. If you look at the knowledge contained in Ayurveda and other Vedic traditions, you'll find a whole system that has been greatly undervalued at this point of the time. And this body of knowledge, I feel, has a potential to transform India and the world. There's somebody from US telling us that you can transform the world. In India, we still don't believe this fact. So that is what is the problem. Next slide. Next slide.
Yeah.
Now, World Health Organization has recognized the value of traditional and complementary systems of medicine, and to say that safe and respectful, cost efficient and effective manner, this should be used for the healthcare all over the world. Now, in the next slide, please, next slide. What are the various alternative medicines? So today, when we say what is the mainstream medicine, it's a modern medicine. So what is alternative medicine? They range from naturopathy, Ayurveda, TCM, Unani, so many things. Then there is a complementary medicine. When you say complementary, that means when you have something to add to the routine medicine practice, conventional medicine, then that is complementary. But when it comes to integrative, what is integrative medicine? We want to examine a patient by modern concepts, modern diagnosis, everything. Then we want to add various other systems to make it integrative. These are called health enhancing measures. So additional combination of any alternative system of healing. That's what today we understand the integrative medicine. We want to change that concept. Next slide, please. Now, do we really need integrative medicine? What exactly we are going to get out of this integrative medicine? Is the modern medicine not sufficient? There are so many developments in modern medicine. They are now changing the heart, changing the brain, changing the skin. So everything is being done today. So that's what we see. The miracles in modern medicine are happening, but yet the disease burden has not reduced. There is a huge chronic disease burden which the whole world faces. That is because of there is a distorted tunnel vision of a reductionist medicine, symptomatic disease-based approach, and high cost of the gadgets and technology. And orientation is naturally would be profit orientation. That's what it is going to be. And last and not the least, today the world views modern medicine as a instrument of selling sickness, not healing the patients, but selling sickness. So we see daily that we need, when a patient comes to us, we have to advise them, stop this medicine, stop that medicine, stop that medicine, to make them normal, because these medicines themselves cause a lot of complications. So integrative medicine is a holistic approach. We just don't look at the patient alone. We look also to his environment. Without his environment, we have to look at the whole. So that's not enough to just look at part. So therefore, there is a larger meaning, larger mission, the whole thing. There is a focus on a positive health promotion and also healing, and emphasis on prevention of disease. This basically, Ayurveda talks of prevention of the disease by health promotion. So that is the most important central point on which we are going to deal today. Centrality of positive patient-physician relation. Now that's very, very important. Unless that is there, so patient has a confidence in a doctor. It's a big placebo. I remember a patient, I started my practice as a general practitioner. And when I became a consultant, I told that gentleman, there is no need for you to come to me now. Since now I am a consultant, I'm going to charge more. So therefore, you please don't come for small things. He said, you charge me whatever you want. Even if you give me your coat button as a tablet, I will take it and I will be happy with that. And with that, I am going to be cured. I have so much confidence. You cannot stop me. See, that itself is a big placebo effect. So that relation between patient and physician, somewhere now with this modern trend, that's totally disappearing. Next slide, please. Now let's try to understand, for a modern medicine to learn, you need to have a basic background of physics, chemistry, biology, and mathematics. These are the four basic sciences which are absolutely necessary to understand anything about modern medicine. But when it comes to Ayurveda, a student is admitted with these basic qualifications, but that's not basic to Ayurveda. The basic to Ayurveda is Vedic sciences, Indic sciences, Shad Shastras, Vedanta. These are the basic fundamentals. Unless you learn that, Ayurveda does not become understandable. So that's why people cannot digest the Ayurvedic message without this background. So therefore, when we say science is a continuous quest for new knowledge and always ready to assimilate, now question comes is, what is today modern medicine? Modern medicine is dead allopathy. Allopathy is dead now. When all the modern scientific developments in basic sciences are added to that, it has become modern medicine. Now, Ayurveda, can it assimilate this modern medicine, modern developments in science? That's a big question. When you want to assimilate that, is the Ayurvedic concepts, are they fit enough to take in these modern concepts? Now, this is what I'm going to talk, because my book also tries to show how the concepts of Ayurveda are able to dilate and accept these new concepts. And in fact, these concepts had their origin in Ayurveda. Next slide. I must tell you that Indian concept of time, we call it Kala Chakra. That means what goes in the past comes back in the present, and in the present it goes to past. There's a cycle. Now you have seen that we thought Ayurveda is at the lowest end. Look at 2015. What has happened? In 2015, the Nobel Prize was given to TCM Toyo Yu for inventing artimether. Artimether now is adopted by the modern medicine for treatment of malaria. In 2017, 3 people got Nobel Prize for what? Saying that the gene proteins, namely per gene and tim gene, they change as per the light and dark. Now, this was very well explained when they said Vata, Pitta, Kapha, they change according to the different periods of the day and night. So they were very relevant, and people were not willing to accept this. But today, we are coming back to these original concepts which were in the Ayurveda, which has been talked thousands and thousands of years ago. So today I want to redefine integrative approach. It's not today I want to say that our future medicine is going to be modern medicine and Ayurveda will be complementary. I am coming to state that what Pranjivan Das Mehta said, the great Dr. Pranjivan Das Mehta, he said Ayurveda is not antiquarian, but it is a futuristic medicine. And this is what I want to bring to the notice of everybody. And also Lokmanya Tilak resolved that we need to resolve what Lokmanya Tilak said at the end of the 19th century, that there is a need to include all the modern scientific developments into Ayurveda, make Ayurveda into Ayurvidya. So this was what was this suggestion. And today I am coming with that idea, how we can make Ayurveda into Ayurvedya. Now, you already said that Tadvidya Sambhasha, we conducted number of Tadvidya Sambhashas through my organization. And this is not Vada or Samvada, but Sambhasha. So it is not argument. It's not a, it's not a debate, but it's more like a dialogue between different systems to come together and try to bridge the gap. There was a time when there were great Ayurvedic physicians of Mumbai, one Vaidya Sharma, and he was a very well-known, renowned person. He came, I was a junior doctor at that time. He came to give a talk. He said Ayurveda and modern medicine are two different entities. They cannot come together. He said, how? He says that Ayurveda is like oil and modern medicine is like a cloth. For that one, you require a meter. For other, you require a gallon. So therefore, these two cannot come together. So they have to be two sides of the river. They cannot merge. So that was what the concept. And we have a watertight compartments in India, and that needs to be bridged. The whole idea is this Tadvidya Sambhasha today, what we are holding, is the way that we want to bring down and bridge these two, sides of the river to banks of the river. And that's how we want to take forward the idea of Lokmanya Tilak. Next slide, please. Now let us see how modern medicine is also changing. There was a time, Freeman Dyson, a very well-known biologist, he said life is defined as a material system that can acquire, store, process, and use information to organize its activities. Now today, the whole concept of that physical system, they could not see beyond that physical system. It's not a physical system. Life in Ayurveda is not a physical system. It is a Prakriti Purusha Samyoga, where a Purusha is sentient, non-material, and whereas Prakriti is a material. The mind and body are the material systems. So the mind is a processor. It's a physical processor of a software that is the Purusha or Atma, or whatever you want to call. So that is how we need to understand that three bodies, what Ayurveda talks, Karana Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, and a Stula Sharira. And when we say this, that Karana Sharira is Atma, Sukshma Sharira is Mana, the mind, and Stula Sharira is the corporal body. So therefore, we need to understand that thinking and knowledge systems, the conscious thinking knowledge systems are different from that of the material system of Prakriti. Next slide, please. I want to tell you something very interesting. People think Vedas are some religious books. They are not. They are the storehouse of a lot of scientific knowledge. Each Veda finally comes with a conclusion of in one line. Can you imagine the entire Vedic? Each Veda says one line, that is the final information. What Atharva Veda says, Prajnanam Brahma. Now, what does that mean? Prajnanam. The infallible knowledge is a Brahman. Brahman, Purusha, Atman are conscious and intelligent. Sentient agent in you. That is what is Prajnanam. And without Jnanam, you cannot do it. Everything ends in Jnana, what Bhagavad Gita says. And Jnana is responsible for the knowledge, is responsible for all the actions whatsoever. Every cell in you is intelligent, conscious. And this cell knows how it has to grow. Now, for example, an embryo is a single cell. It's endowed with an intelligence to make 92 trillion cells of the body. So just as a man can make his house, railroad, structures, Every cell knows how to do it. For example, a hepatocyte knows its duties, whereas a cardiocyte, that is cardiomyocyte of the heart muscle, also knows how it has to do its functions. So compare this whole thing. When you talk of Sankhya, it says that Pinda Brahmandanaya, which Dr. Shekhar has already mentioned that. So what is true for a single cell is true for entire universe, or what is true for an atom is true for whole universe. So this whole idea is so scientific, nobody can deny this. Next slide, please. Now, how this mind operates. Now, most of us, we perform Sandhya Vandan and we pray in Sandhya Vandan for what? Dhiyo yonaha prachodayat. Dhiyo yona means what? Dhi, Dhruti, Smruti, Buddhi, Chintan, and Vivek. This is not Dhiyo yona. Dhi just not just we say mind or something like that, Buddhi. No. Dhiyo yona, Dhi, etc. Dhi, Dhruti, Smruti, Chintan, Buddhi, all this together. We request for that. What does that mean? How does the knowledge in artificial intelligence work? Getting information, receiving information, storing information, recalling information, and processing information into some knowledge. So this is what an artificial intelligence does. So these receiving every information is coded and received, coded and processed. Now everything depends on how well the information is coded, how well the information is processed. That will determine the class of information and knowledge. We'll go to that little later, but let's try to understand. Dhi is receiving coded information, Dhruti is storing information, Chintan is processing information into knowledge, Smruti is recollection, that is memory. So that is Smruti. Buddhi is judgment of decision making. Many times we give right judgments, wrong judgments. But Viveka is one that gives you through experience. You do an experiential decision, that is called experiential wisdom. Next slide, sir. So now, as I said, how this processing has changed over a period of time. If you remember the times that most of us, we had used telegrams. The first way that we understood the coding was a Morse coding. Then came analog coding. You got a LP record players. Then gramophone records, carbon memory, digital codes. Now, you have got digital coding. And now a time has come, we are talking in terms of the finest, the smallest and finest, we are calling quantum coding. So that is the next step which you're going through. And as this coding and processing becomes more and more advanced, your understanding is better and better. The images are clear, the sounds are clear, what you see. So therefore, your understanding becomes clear. So in that case, what happens when you get a clearest of the knowledge, you call it sattva. When you don't have the correct knowledge, you get a corrupted images, corrupted sound, corrupted images, then it is, tamas. And when it is intermediate type of the codings, like analog coding or something like that. So it could be rajas. This is just to explain to you how this coding, the way that knowledge is generated, this knowledge generation gives you sattva, raja, tama understanding. Next slide, please. Now, there was always a problem. When you talk of human body composition, we say everything is made up of Panchamahabhuta. Everything in this universe is Panchabhautik. So how do we explain this in terms of the chemistry? Now, let us try to understand. What we eat, that you are. The food, basically what they are, carbohydrate, fats, and proteins. Now, what is the basic structure of a carbohydrate? Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, CHO. The fats, the lipids are C double bond O. And protein, you add one nitrogen bond, CHON, the nitrogen bond makes it a protein. Now, if you see that your entire body is made up of basically 4 elements. Of course, there are others, but I am talking majorly 4 elements. So now let's understand. Next slide, please. How this whole concept emerged in the modern medicine. So the hypothesis was that life emanated from the oceans first. The hydrocarbon molecules, under the influence of tidal waves and sun rays, this resulted into formation of biological substances, and that resulted into the amino acids, nitrogen bases, and oligomers. This was what was the first idea which came in. And A. Oparin of USSR, he proved that in a lab that this model can give rise to various biomolecules, the low molecular weight biomolecules, and by which the cell membranes could be formed. So that was the beginning to show how the life is formed in the test tube. So therefore, what was required when you say hydrocarbon molecules? Carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen from the air, oxygen from the air, water is again H2O, all this put together with 2 energies, the solar energy and sound energy, ultrasound. Aso Aditya Brahma and Nada Brahma. The Aditya was Brahma is the creator, and Aditya and Nada is the sound. Sound is also a creator. This is what this experiment proves without any doubt. Our ancient concepts are very vibrant. Next slide. Now let's try to understand what Prithvi means. Gandhavati Prithvi. That means you are talking of aroma. No aroma can be created without carbon. Carbon is basic. Carbon is life. Activated carbon is basic to life. And if you studied aromatic chemistry, the very first lesson is a benzene ring, benzene nucleus or benzene ring. And this benzene ring is at the base of entire aromatic chemistry with 6 carbon atoms, without which no life can come. So therefore, Prithvi as a carbon or silicon, there is a silicon-based life also, deep down. So silicon and carbon have the similar chemistry. So water, H2O. Now just imagine that hydrogen and oxygen both are inflammable gases, highly inflammable gases. Now you put together these two together, the water which prevents the inflammation, prevents the fire. You understand? So inflammable gases coming together, forming water, which can stop the flame. Isn't it very interesting? So that is water. Then Tej is the solar radiations and the heat waves coming from the sun, and they are the energy on which we survive. And Vayu, which is mixture of nitrogen, oxygen mainly, and other gases, minor gases. And Akash, interesting, is described as Shabdagunam Akasham. Is described that it is sound energy creates, this is the virtue of Akash. So we have seen that both these energies together, and carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, basically are at the root of this concept of Panchamahabhut. Next slide, please. Now, same thing today. This is 1992, Wang, Pearson, Hempfield, 5 levels of human body organization. What are they talking? First level, atomic level, carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and other gases. Molecules comprised of proteins, fats, and others. Level 3, cell masses, extracellular space, and extracellular fluid. And fourth level, tissue system and the whole body fat system. When I proposed this idea, many of our Ayurvedic colleagues thought this idea is unworkable, this is not correct. But anyway, I'm trying to show that how similar, it's not necessary to equate one to other, but it is always good to see what resembles what and what is easily understandable. The next slide, please. Now, Tridoshas, or what are Tridoshas? Vata, Pitta, Kapha doshas. Now, these are concepts which they have created. On what basis? If you look at the Ayurveda concept, they say, in the sky, what do you see? The sun, moon, and air. There are three things which are very important. So also, how do they form and how do they control the whole universe? So also our body is controlled. Now, Vata, Pitta, Kapha controls your entire body physiology and pathology, both. So therefore, we need to think this Vata, Pitta, Kapha at the level, at a cellular level, at a lesser than cellular level, at a molecular level. We should think of Vata, Pitta, Kapha when we talk of this, because Vata, Pitta, Kapha are Panchabhautik. Akash and Vayu become Vata, Tej and Aap become Pitta, Aap and Prithvi become Kapha. So this, again, they are Panchabhautik. There's a physical agents. Next slide, please. Based on this, they made a very wonderful idea to divide people into clusters. Clusters based on psychology, psychic characters, and physical characters, and their behaviors, their responses. How do they respond to various stimuli? So based on that, they developed 7 dosha prakrutis based on Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Let's see how they take it forwards. Next slide. The diet and lifestyle of the pregnant mother, physiological state of her uterus and ovulatory cycles at the time of conception. When the union of the male and female gametes occur, affect the proportional sense of balance of 3 doshas, causing predominance of one or the other dosha. And this gives into 7 prakrutis. Vata, Pitta, Kapha, Vata, Pitta, Vata, Kapha, and Pitta, Kapha. So, Sannipatika are the 7 types when all the 3 doshas are there. Now, how do I explain this Prakruti in a modern medical college? Or how do I make an Ayurvedic person to understand this whole concept? Now, how does it happen? So, unless I try to make some sort of a understanding of how genome happens. If you look at the way that genome forms, what is after all genome? Genome is nothing but it's a library of hereditary information in you that has come from generation to generation, and that is transferred through DNA in the chromosomes of the nucleus of a cell. Very simple. Now, when that happens, when embryogenesis happens, then 50% of the chromosomes of sperm, 50% of the chromosomes of the oocyte or the egg come together. There is a union. They mix and match to form a genome of the embryo. So this new baby who is going to form, this happens in the first 6 days of the conception. That means the day the embryo formed, within first 6 days, what we call it gene imprinting. Now this gene imprinting happens because there is
Hello. Hello. Doctor. Hello.
in Hindu concept, the Gotra determination happens on part from the side of the husband side, because it is sperm which determines the genius genome. So therefore, the Gotra determination happens accordingly, and is a very scientific way of the thought process which our ancient people had. Next slide, please. Now, how to identify these doshas? Can we see under a microscope? Can we make some tests and find out? Lab tests are not there, nothing. But a clinician has to find out there are certain qualities. These are known as gunas. There are 10 opposite gunas, 10 pairs of opposite gunas. Heavy, light, cold, hot, slow, fast, unctus, dry, amorphous, crystalline. Like that, there are 20 gunas. We can identify these gunas either going up or going down. Now, food you eat or drug you take, they have got tastes. Now, tastes are basically, they are chemoreceptors. The four tastes, sweet, sour, bitter, and salt. There are four which are chemoreceptors on the tongue. When OH ion is released, you find the substance to be sweet. When H ion is released, you will find it sour. When a sodium is released, you will find it salt. When it is a nitrogenous substance, the alkaloid, it's a bitter taste you find. The pungent and astringent are not chemoreceptors, but they are the neuroreceptors. That gives us the different tastes on the we can identify by your tongue. So even the taste decide vata pitta kapha. The sweet upregulates kapha, down regulates vata. Bitter pacifies the upregulated pitta. So like that, all this whatever the knowledge which they have given is really wonderful ideas, and the same thing could be understood by what this could be said in a clinical language, what exactly this means. Ruksha, what does it do? It depletes. Alpa signature is mild unctus. So these are Vata Pitta Kapha. Thank you, Dr. Shekhar, for putting in a very nice table form. And Shita, Laghu, Sukshma, Chala, Vishada. This can be seen clinically, both clinically as well as when you give a drug, you can type a drug into this, and also the results of the drug can be seen in the body. For example, if you say Chala means what? Many times you find patients have some tremors. Patients have some speech problems. There are tremors while they speak. So like that, we have so many dryness of the eyes, dryness of the skin, and osteoarthritis. Again, it's a drying of the kapha there. So like that, so you can immediately identify these. You don't require any lab. You don't require anything. Even if you are thrown on a island where there is nobody else apart from you and the patient, you can still treat that patient. You don't have to search for anything. This is what Ayurveda provides. An Ayurvedic physician, if he knows what he has studied well through Ayurveda, he can manage a patient accordingly. Not that everything can be managed, but yes, the basic patient management can be done through that. Next slide, please. Now, here I'm just trying to enumerate the functions of Vata, Pitta, Kapha. enthusiasm, inspiration, expiration, all voluntary, involuntary actions of the body, regulation. Everything
Hello.
important is even organogenesis in the fetus is
Hello. Hello. We lost.
next slide. Pitta again, the vision, digestion, temperature, hunger, thirst, etc. But most important is mental functions, basically neurohormone chemistry and the work. The transformation of one into other is again one substance into other. We'll come to that in detail later. The transformation chemistry. And Pitta and Agni are one and the same according to Sushruta. Next slide, please. Kapha is your structural mechanism of your body. It also means improving your body structures, structural formations, replenishment of the organs, heaviness of the body, increasing the libido, steadfast mind, exercise tolerance, forgiveness, courage, forbearance. There are so many qualities which can be attributed to kapha, and these can be identified by the various snigdha, sneha, slakshana, all these which we have explained earlier, the gunas, by which an Ayurvedic physician can find out whether kapha dosha has increased or kapha dosha has decreased and how to balance it. Next slide, please. All these concepts, very speculative concepts. Just I said, looking at the sun, moon, and air, they speculated these all things. They did what the best they can. But do they stand the testimony of today? You know, as a student in Ayurvedic college, I used to always wonder. They said, Vyana Vayu causes your closure and opening of the eyes. Now, this closure opening of the eyes done by a Vayu, you breathe Vayu, you create Vayu, so many things. Now, that was something. How does it happen? What way it does? Till then, there was no intellectual satisfaction. How Vata, the air, does all this. Till the time in 1980, the nitric oxide gas was discovered. The nitric oxide gas is such a gas which is the first neurochemotransmitter. We only thought of chemotransmission, but we never understood there is something more. It is the air. This is the gas. This is nitric oxide gas, carbon monoxide gas. They have action both synaptic, presynaptic, and postsynaptic neurons. Both ways, neurotransmitters. Not one-way traffic, two-way traffic. So Vata was that powerful. See, this was speculated, and this is proved correct by our new development in science. Till then, we thought Vata is all humbug. But today, the Vata concept is perfect. Next slide, please. Next slide. Nitric oxide is both in health and disease. Same thing, Vata, when it is normal, we call it Dhatu. When it is abnormal, then it is the cause of the disease. So several pathophysiological states are the result of nitric oxide deficiency or increase or normality. And nitric oxide is critical determinant for basal vascular tone. If your blood vessels are working normally, it is because of nitric oxide. The moment there is a problem in nitric oxide generation, your vascular tone is lost. So therefore, vascular tone regulation that, and it has also got antimicrobial activity, and it is also cause of programmed cell death. You know, in our body, the cells are formed every day, and every day they are lost. But this happens through a program that the number of the cells will always remain what they are required, so that your body either progresses and maintains a normal health. So that's called a programmed cell death. So deficiency of nitric oxide generation or increase in activation of nitric oxide causes hypertension, chronic renal failure, and so many problems. Excessive production of the nitric oxide can cause free radical generation and damage the lipid membranes, damage the mitochondrial DNA. So therefore, Vayu in Ayurveda called Yantra Tantra Dhara. Yantra Tantra Dhara means it is both causes regulation and also causes action. So that means Yantra is there and Tantra is also there. So these free radicals are produced in the mitochondria of the cells and they cause biological oxidation. Next slide, please. So reactive oxygen species, reactive nitrogen species, I need not go into all this, but one thing I want to tell you, the body has got a tremendous capacity to defense. There is a natural antioxidant of body defense, superoxide dismutase, catalyze, glutathione, peroxidase. There are a number of such substances. So they are there to fight as a defense system in the body. So we need to create that. Next slide, please. Entire human physiology revolves around the most important thing, homeostasis. Even modern medicine talks of homeostasis. I'll come to that little later. Samadosha samagnisya samadhatu malakriya prasanna atmendriya manaha atma indriya and mana swastamit abhidete. See, there are two terms very important you must understand. One is aroga and other is arogya. When you're talking of health, swastha means you are talking of arogya. You are talking of mana prasannata. When do you have mana prasannata? Then you are really having your atma, indriya, mana. They are in a homeostatic way. Then your mana becomes prasanna. You are in a happy or a pleasant mood. So that is when you are healthy. You are swastha. So you may not be aroga, or there may be aroga and arogya. These are two different states of the body. So you need to understand. So dosha, normality, hypo and under regulation, hyper regulation. Today we say so many genes, they are hyper mutilated, hyper regulated, under regulated, they are absent, they are mutated. So many ways we talk of genes, gene proteins, so many things. Now we come to that little later, but there is a lot of ways that you can put together these concepts. Next slide, please. So modern medicine also talks in the same language. Unfortunately, people don't realize that. Circulating body fluids, serum, intraorganic fluids constitute the internal environment and they preserve the necessary relation with exchange in equilibrium with the external cosmic environment. What Ayurveda talked, this is exactly what was talked by Claude Bernard in 1865. And this same concept came, this name, homeostasis, were given to this concept in 1962 by Sir Walter Bradford Cannon, a great physician of the time. So therefore, what I want to say, the concept of homeostasis, what samadhatu samatvam, which Ayurveda talks, and the same thing is said in modern medicine, but only it is not appreciated. Next slide. So therefore, how does this work? Let us try to understand. So to understand this, you must have something which the cell, we said, is intelligent. Then cell has a lot of functions. Now in these cells, there are molecules which function and they are guided by the intelligence. Now that intelligence which guides is what is your informational and knowledge systems, which today modern medicine accepts. I will come to that and show you what exactly it means a little later. But informational knowledge systems are most important consideration today in modern medicines. So therefore, you need to understand that there are different types of proteins, different types of things which are responsible. They're regulatory enzyme structural proteins. These are formed in the cell, and how these are regulated, the way that it is. So Sattva Rajatama and Vata Pitta Kapha together, they organize the whole thing. Those are the subtle physical entities, Panchamahati, and comparable to mRNA, proteins, etc. We'll come to this little later again. Next slide. Now let's try to understand genes. Almost more than 150 years ago, Mendel's came out with an idea. There is something which are hereditary markers in everybody. And these hereditary markers came to be known as genes nearly after 100 years after Mendel's. That these are genes an irreducible unit of hereditary and biological information system. Now, whenever our people said Atma doesn't die, there is no death to Atma, what did they exactly mean? The informational, biological information systems which are existing, they don't die with a man. These are transferred. These are continuously transferred from one generation to other generation. The biological information. And that is happening through DNA. And DNA is what? Is a nuclear protein. And this nuclear protein is an inert substance, is an inert chemical. So in a chemical way, the information is transmitted from one generation to other. And this is called, what we call it a gene, is similar to byte in a digital system. It's like an atom when you talk of matter. When you talk of biology, it's a cell. So this is an irreducible unit. So gene. So genes carry genetic information. So now let's try to understand. DNA sequences determine the structure of mRNA, structure of proteins. The structural proteins are actin, myosin, hemoglobin, myoglobin, collagen. These are the structural proteins. Then there are proteins which are transcriptional. So one to other, how these various things transform. You eat food, that is transformed into something, that is transformed into muscle, that is transformed. So all these changes which occur, this is known as transformational chemistry, transcriptional proteins. They catalyze the biochemical conversions, one molecule into other, synthesis complex lipids, carbohydrates, macromolecules. So regulatory proteins, what do? They dictate as to how much each structural protein or enzyme made by which cell and when and for how long. This is what the modern medicine talks. And if you see the correlation of this in Ayurveda, Vata Pitta Kapha, of that, Kapha and Pitta are Pangu, they are lame. And whereas Vata is the one which operates all these systems. When you look at this and look at this, there is a lot of similarity in these two things which I am trying to say. So they act through endocrine, paracrine, autocrine mechanisms, multiple parallel crisscrossing intracellular signaling pathways are active in the disease. Now, it is not only these structural proteins, but these pathways are more important. So, therefore, what I am trying to say, molecular nature of Vata Pitta Kapha, in terms of molecular biology, so this is what I tried to explain. So, next slide, please. Same, when you say Vata Tushti or something happened to Vata, which became abnormal, or when it is reduced, when it is increased. So today we talk in terms of mutation in genes, alter the structures, functions of enzymes, structural proteins. Well, everything can be altered. So the functions of these can be altered because of mutations. Both normal, abnormal cell proliferation is under control. Then ultimately, these activation inhibition pathways result into transcriptional factor from cytoplasm to nucleus that binds this to the specific gene. And that's how the whole regulation process occurs. Up regulation, down regulation of these genes cause a disturbance in the homeostasis resulting in disease process. Now, how disease process occurs is now can be understood. Vata, Pitta, Kapha, they maintain harmony when they are normal. Genes also, they maintain the harmony when they are normal. When they are mutated, they are the cause of disease. Similarly, you can understand Vata, Pitta, Kapha in the current understanding is akin to second messenger molecular receptor signal transfer. Because there are a number of ways that all these things happen. Just as I said, there are crisscross, ways, pathways they are happening. But although signaling molecules are diverse, but signal transduction pathways or the mechanisms are limited. There are only three. So that three mechanisms which modern medicine today accepts are increase or decrease of CMP or GMP, increase or decrease of IP3 or inositol triphosphate or DHA, increase or decrease of calcium and other ion channels. So these are the only three pathways. What Ayurveda talked about, three pathways. So also the modern medicine is also talking of three pathways. Now, can we see there is a growing interface between Ayurveda and modern medicine? Is that possible? So it is for the Ayurvedic scholars to try and understand, and the modern people to try and understand Ayurveda. So this is how we can understand. Next slide, please. Irrespective of that, whatever the injury, we are saying this cause, that, this, etc., the cause of the disease. But finally, what is that? There are the cellular lesions are limited. There are four ways that cell is affected. The aerobic respiration involving oxidative phosphorylation, ATP production, synthesis of enzymes, regulatory and structural proteins, maintenance of this integrative cellular membranes, on which the osmotic homeostasis, because the most intelligent part of the cell is the cell membrane. It knows what it is to accept inside and what it is to throw out. The cell membrane is the master. It is the brain of the cell, is the cell membrane. So reproductive organ of the cell is the nucleus. So every cell has got all the organs what a human being has. So in the context of the reductionist biomedicine, what Dr. Lele says, approach from the whole person to the level of individual organs and tissues and intracellular organelles. To identify the specific causes, we go on trying to identify. But when it comes to cell and intracellular organisms, the doctrine of specific causes becomes completely blurred. Whatever the injury, that the final cause comes down to something which is common, whichever the type of the injury or insult may be, that will produce the biochemical issue. Next slide, please. So now, if we can try and compare what Ayurveda, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and we say, for example, somebody, you want to type a genome, how much costly it becomes. But for an Ayurvedic man, to type a Vata, Pitta, Kapha, it doesn't require much. So the way that he can understand, and he can try to bring the homeostasis between these doshas would be much more easier. And therefore, I say that Ayurvedic knowledge is a must for any physician. Any modern physician must know the easiest way to type a patient, type a disease, and and also decide what treatment to be given. So therefore, we go to the next, Agni. Agni, how interesting. Agni comes to the word ignis in Latin. Agni, in Sanskrit it is Agni, and in Latin it is ignis, and in English it is ignite. There is so much similarity between these words. So they have described 13 types of Agni. When they talked of Panchabhutas, there is a Panchabhutik Agni at the molecular level they have talked. At the atomic level, at the atomic level. When they talked of the tissues, it was at a molecular level, but at the level of the Panchamubhat, it was even atomic level. This happens. Just as I said, oxygen and hydrogen coming together is also an Agni, coming together. So this is how you can understand how the different levels the Agni is described. Sama Agni, Manda Agni, the poor Agni. Samagni is a normal Agni. Tikshna Agni is a very, very fiery Agni. Then Visham Agni is irregular metabolic fire. Next slide, please. So when the Jataragni, the Agni within the stomach or the intestinal canal, if that is poor, the whatever the Annarasa which forms will be not of a good quality, and that results into generation of ama, which is poisonous or a toxic, and that's the cause of the disease. Many of the diseases are because we eat wrong food, causing indigestion, and that's how we end up in this. Next slide, please. Now, what are the causes of ama? It's very interesting. What leads? Abhojana, starvation; ajirnam, indigestion; atibhojan, excessive eating; irregular eating habits, vishamachan; incompatible foods, viruddhashan. You'll be surprised. In whole of the medical college of 5.5 years, there is not a word on either digestion or nutrition, nothing of that, what causes this. So nutrition in a modern medical college understanding is very poor. When a doctor asks, when a patient asks a doctor, what do I eat? Doctor will say, you eat anything. Nothing of my concern. I only give you medicines. So that sort of a situation is there. So food and the way that food is taken. So that is very, very important. Next slide, please.
Sorry.
Aharo roga sambhava. Ayurveda says food is medicine, all right. But food also is the cause of disease. So today, gut microbiome is one of the revolutionary areas of research in biomedicine. And do you know what is Kaya Chikitsa is all about? It's all about Agni, Jataragni, treatment of that. And that is Kaya Chikitsa. So Ayurveda gave a very, very great importance to this part of Agni and property of digestion, assimilation of food, all that, and how to prevent Koshtagata Vyadhi. Now, what are the medicines which Ayurveda gives? They are either prebiotic or probiotic or antimicrobial herbs. These medications are very important from the gut pathology, prevention and treatment. This is very, very important. There are a number of the herbs which we take are very, very necessary for upkeep of the GI tract. Next slide, please. Now we come to understand 7 essential dhatu, rasa, rakta, mausa, meda, asti, majja, shukra. The 7. Now there is a very interesting question I want to discuss with you all, asked in Charak Samhita. The student asked the Charak, saying that the food we eat and it becomes, you say, rasa, from rasa, rakta to mausa. All this happens. But rasa is without a color, it's a fluid. The next rakta is red in color. A mausa is solid. And still solid and hard is both. How do you explain all this? How different tissues are formed in the body? What is the answer of Guru? Very simple answer. Kedari Kulya Nyaya. That means if you go to a rice field, you see from one square to other square to other, like that entire rice field gets water. Similarly, all 7 dhatus get what they require. They said, why this change happens? From one to other, the change. What is the change you can? So he said, Kshiradati Nyaya means from the milk turns into curd. Isn't it the milk turns into curd? Milk is liquid, curd is solid. Simple answer got over. And the third, then there is a selection. Khale kapati nyaya. If you put grains on the ground, the pigeon will only pick the grains which it requires. There is a selection. By selection, what is required will be taken by different tissues, and that is what is the third nyaya. Now, looking at this, it's such a simplistic answer. How do we digest this? How do we digest this? Unless you understood that how milk turned into curd. Milk turned into curd, we learn that there is lactobacilli, which turn milk into curd. Today, do we use lactobacilli? We just use some enzyme and convert into curd. In so many big factories, what they do? They do enzyme. You know the story of enzyme, which is very interesting. There was a scientist who was working on the quality of the wines, and at that time, the concept was that yeast was the cause of the quality of the yeast, was the cause of the quality of the wine. So one day he said, this doesn't sound so well. So he took that yeast into a muslin cloth and tried to squeeze the juice into grape juice, and that turned into wine. And that wine, which turned into, he said, no, there are no yeast in this, but how this came, change? Then he said there was something in the yeast which converted this, and exactly the translation of that something in the yeast is enzyme. So enzyme word has come from that. Today, all these transformations which happen in your body, we say this enzyme, that enzyme, all this is come under what we call Kshiradadi Nyaya. So we can today explain to the students very easily. Next slide, please. Now, Majja Dhatu is very interesting Dhatu. Now, Majja is bone marrow, and bone marrow has totipotent cells. From this, any tissue can be formed from totipotent cells. Your all blood cells are coming from bone marrow. White cells, red cells, macrophages, name it, they are from that. And there's also a possible way. Next slide, please. Next slide. That spermatogonia, one slide before. Yeah. Spermatogonia in germinal epithelium of the testis and leucites could have their origin in totipotent cells of bone marrow. Today, modern medicine accepts. You know, I always used to question my teacher in Ayurvedic college. How did the sperm come from bone marrow? That was the commonest question which he asked. And there was no answer. So today we have an answer. That's one. There's another answer. Sushruta says, Samatvagata Viryatva, that he says that when Majja development completes, the Shukra Dhatu begins formation. Now, when does Majja Dhatu completes its formation? It forms when the red marrow in the long bones gets converted into yellow marrow in the adolescence. In adolescent age, the red marrow is replaced by yellow fatty marrow, and this fatty marrow gives positive feedback to hypothalamus, and that is responsible for hypothalamo-pituitary axis. So this is the new information and which satisfies our queries regarding Ayurvedic concept of Majja to Shukra. Next slide, please. Now, even there can be a question that from Meda, how bone? You understand, bone formation requires vitamin D. And vitamin D is a lipoid substance, ergosterol. So vitamin D is a lipoid substance. So without that, a bone cannot form. So therefore, to understand Ayurveda, there are a lot of modern scientific developments need to be understood. Believe me, I was a non-believer in Ayurveda. When I studied this information, I thought I was blaming Ayurveda for a long time. But today I find myself a fool after knowing this development. That what modern medicine is selling is same as what Susmita said. There is no difference between that. So this understanding that Ayurveda and modern medicine are not really different. Is only difference in the language, how you speak and how much you understood, how much you not understood. Next slide, please. Ojas is immune power. That today we talk of T cells, B cells, all that immune power which we talk has been described in Ojas. Next slide. Now they have said that there are two types of Ojas. One is Ashtabindu Ojas. Many times you see suddenly somebody very active just falls to death for no reason whatsoever. So this is only 8 drops of Ojas. When that is lost, there is instantaneous death. So in all the instantaneous deaths, it is para Ojas, and upper Ojas is that Ojas which is I talked of T cells, B cells, lymphocytes, neutrophils, etc. All this, they form upper Ojas, and they have described 3 conditions: Oja Visrama, Oja Vyapatha, Oja Thaya. See, Oja, when there is a Dhatu Kshaya, that means when the tissues are fading, so you get a Oja Kshaya, when this Oja is completely lost, and when Dosha Dushti, because of the imbalance of doshas, there can be Oja Bhavat, and Oja Visrama, when there is a trauma, there is a sudden loss of blood, there is a grief, stress. Can cause grief or stress, can cause the sudden death. So that's also called Oja Visrama. Next slide, please. So therefore, immunology and Ayurveda, number of the herbs which are now we understand, they are immunomodulatory drugs, and Ashwagandha, Beda, Guduchi, Kalame, Haridra. So all these, you all know, they are a very powerful immunomodulatory drugs. Next slide, please. Some very interesting observation in Ayurveda. One should not restrain natural urges like passing of the bowel motion, hunger, sleep, eructations, hiccups. All this should not be restrained. But can we stop restraining? You want to pass urine, your class is going on, you can't move out. So there are reasons by which you stop, and that can result in pathology. But he says you suppress certain vegas. These vegas must be suppressed if you want to be healthy. What are they? Passion, anger, greed, delusion. We call them Arishid Varga. Kama, Krodha, Loba, Moha, Mada, Matsara. They are 6 of your enemies. So these are what you need to do it. Next slide, please. Malas. Now, whenever there is an obstruction in the passage of any srotas, that will result into disease. This is Ayurvedic concept. That you see every day. If your wash basin is clogged, what will happen? After a few days, you start getting smell. Now, that is what is because there is an accumulation of bacteria which will start the stench. Very simple. Now, another example I want to give, when you do a srota, for example, you have very irregular eating habits. You keep your stomach empty for a long time. What happens to your pyloric sphincter? Because you see the magic between the pyloric sphincter and the ileocecal wall, the entire intestine is absolutely sterile, no bacteria. The moment you cross the ileocecal wall, the entire bowel is full of bacteria. How this is maintained? It is maintained because there is a competence of these walls. If you repress these, you are going to create incompetence of the wall. Now let us see what happens. When you do that, the pyloric wall becomes incompetent. What is the next thing to happen? Next thing to happen is the bile gets back into the stomach. There is a reflux of bile into the stomach. And because of that, the acidity which is required to be maintained in the stomach does not happen. And a bacteria called H. pylori gets a footprint in that, isn't it? So what we have done, we have created an opportunity by this Vega Avarodh for damaging your sphincters. So therefore, how to maintain your sphincter competence is very important. If you know that stomach has so much acid, if you put a iron nail, it will dissolve. But H. pylori can survive. It is because of this. H. pylori is an organism which is a cause of acid peptic disease. So therefore, acid peptic disease is the cause of your lifestyle. It is caused by your lifestyle. Correction of your lifestyle could change the whole picture. Instead of treating with antibiotics, what is needed is how we can change our food habits. Next slide, please. Rogastu dosha vaishyamyam, dosha samyam arogata. How the disease is produced. Conceptually, Ayurveda considers disequilibrium of the body constituents, Agni, dosha, dhatu and malas, restoring back the equilibrium. This is the objective of the treatment. The dosha are conceived by intuition and speculation. In reality, they are subtle signaling molecular pathways that deal with both health and disease. Next slide, please. Now, classification of the disease also is very interesting. If you look at it, there are diseases of genetic origin, which is defects in the sperms and egg. Janma bala pravutta, congenital diseases are described. And dosha bala pravutta, errors in diet, lifestyle, ahara, vihara, achara. These all can be causing the diseases. The manasika, sharirika, or the various diseases. Sanghata bala pravutta is a traumatic disease. Kala bala pravutta, the time of the day, the season, etc., would change the disease. And Daiva bala pravutta, when we really don't know the cause, or it is providential, pandemic, janapado dhosak vyadhis, swabhava bala pravutta, that based on your age, old age, childhood, so there are age-specific diseases. So that's what we can see. Next slide, please. Factors for diagnosis: Nidana, Pururupa, Rupa, Upashaya, Samprapti. So that means etiology, premonitory symptoms, clinical picture, relief of the symptoms, and pathogenesis. These are the 5 things meant for diagnosis in Ayurveda. Let's see what happens in modern. Next slide, please. In Ayurveda again, how doshas cause the Prajnaparad. I must talk to you a little bit about Prajnaparad. What exactly does the Prajnaparad means? Prajna means your intelligence. Prajnaparad means when you take irrational judgments, when you commit something horrible actions through improper judgments. So that is called Prajnaparada. Just as a simple example, there is a lot of cold outside and you have not taken sufficient protection and you heroically go out and suffer pneumonia. Very common. This is a Prajnaparada. Simple example. Vega Avarodh I have already discussed. And what happens is Sroto Vrushti, which I said already, because your body is full of channels where everything circulates in the body. And these channels, when they are obstructed, you get Sroto Vrushti and Avarodh, obstruction and Dushti. So that leads to accumulation of doshas. And this causes the prakop of doshas. And there is this, when it becomes more, then it travels all over the body, prasara. Then it localizes at one place and a pathology is established. And there is a Vyakti, It's a full-blown clinical picture. And Vedha is the termination or homeostasis when person comes back to normal or it becomes chronic or a cancer. So like that, the disease progresses, that is Vedha. Next slide, please. Now, this is very interesting. If you look at it, this is how today in the modern medicine, we look at the whole thing. Now, whenever some stress happens or some injury happens, something happens, which is not, there is an infection, it gets into you. So the informational knowledge systems, they sense it. Today, modern medicine is now understanding it in this way. There is a sensing of the whole thing. The moment that sensing happens, the action begins, the morphic disassembly of the molecules, because everything we talk in the molecular motions in the body. So with that, the molecular motions disassembly happens, and which will try immediately when there is inflammation sets in, all these polymorphonuclears, phagocytic cells, everybody comes into the site and they say, suppose there is a bleeding, immediately clotting factors come in. So like that, immediately there will be change in the molecular response that will happen. And then the debris is removed, detoxification occurs, and now the new cellular proliferation and remodeling happens with cellular adhesion matrix synthesis, and everything comes back to homeostasis. If you look at this whole slide, you'll find stress, then these 5 stages which I said, sensing, morphic disassembly, removal, detoxification, all that, and then cell adhesion molecules, then there is a synthesis of that and coming back to the normality. So the healing completely happens, then we call it homeostasis. Let us see what happens. Suppose in this stage, no, go back to the, please, backslide, yeah. When something happens, you break this cycle by something. What happens? The blocked tissue cycle leads to chronic inflammation, or if it is one side, it goes to either genomic instability or a senescence. That means the cellular death or aging of the cells, chronic disease, and degeneration. The another way, there is genomic instability, there can be somatic mutation and a cancer. This is how a modern medicine man will explain to you. And what I earlier explained, that Shat Kriya Kal, at what stage you should start treatment. That is what is Shat Kriya Kal. So this is how you should look at the whole thing. Next slide, please. Now let us see what today we talk of 3D inflammation state space. That there has to be coherence between the information system, Sattva, Raja, Tama, and elements of inflammatory machinery, that is your Vata, Pitta, Kapha. These are elementary inflammatory machinery. They have to be coupled. If they couple, the circle will go perfectly. There will be normal inflammation cycle. Inflammation is a protective phenomenon. It will heal. But if there is a mismatch between the two, then what happens is the whole thing is reversed. There is a chronic inflammation and divergence. See the difference? Now somebody comes to you with small fever. Now fever is a protective mechanism of the body. What do? Immediately you want to stop the fever, you give something to reduce the fever, paracetamol commonly, and you stop the normal inflammation cycle. They are anti-inflammatory drugs. So result is what happens? You get the divergence and you get into those, either it becomes chronic or you may be responsible for creating cancer. Next slide, please. Interestingly, Ayurveda talks how to be swastha. What is swastha paribhasha? There is a question asked, ko aruk, hitabhuk, mitabhuk. Who is the one who is not deceased? Ko aruk, not deceased. This is the person who has a safe diet and a good diet, and with a book, he takes the food in a moderation with a book, measured amount of food, he is the one who doesn't suffer disease. In Gita, he says, Yukta ahara viharasya, Yukta cheshtasya karmasu, Yukta swapnava bodhasya, yoga bhavati dukkha. Dukkha means disease. Now, ahar vihar should be proper, your actions should be proper, and your waking and sleeping cycles must be normal. If this is perfect, then you will not suffer disease. Nityam hita ahara vihara sevi, the same thing when it comes to Ayurveda. Samikshakari vishesa sattva, data samaha, satya paraha kshamavan, aptopasevi bhavatya roga. This adds to your not only this, ahar vihar, but also good behavior, sadvrutta. Sadvrutta is again very important, and that's how the health can be maintained. Next slide, please. Now I'll come to something very interesting. What made me to be a votary of Ayurveda? There's a very interesting concept in Ayurveda, Supraja Jananam. You want a population which is healthy. So for that, what you require? You need to have a baby who is Sujat baby, well-born baby. Now, to be a well-born baby, there should be proper Garbhini Paricharya. That means antenatal care. Antenatal care is a new concept in modern medicine which came in 1901. And whereas it is an age-old practice, which is very interesting, Garbhini Paricharya. The baby born will be Aroga, without any disease or deformity. Arogya, a positive health concept which I already discussed. Bala, strength. Varna, color, complexion. Swara, voice. Samvahana is well nourished. And the child will be so skillful, he will be Jatinam Srishtam Apatyam Janayat. In the community, this particular child will excel. Very interesting concept. Now, I tell you how I got interested in this whole concept. This concept, I got involved way back. I'm talking a story about 40 years back when I joined as a professor at Grand Medical College. One of my students who became a consultant, he referred to me a patient. This was during sometime early 80s. He said, this woman has got toxoplasma. She lost her 3 babies. Is a recurrent abortion. Can you help her? So she came to me. There was no treatment in modern. Her toxoplasma levels were high. So I said, look, I can offer you an Ayurvedic treatment which may help you, which may not help you. I don't give you any guarantee, but you may try. This is only hope which I can give you. And this, the lady agreed. She was an educated lady. She had only one question, will it harm me? I said, it won't harm you. So you prepare decoctions at your home. I gave the prescription and she was preparing decoctions, the educated lady. I selected about 18 ingredients from Sushruta and started. And the result of that, her baby grew well. She had a very wonderful progress. And finally, she delivered 3 times with me and I sterilized her also. So that was the beginning of my research into the subject of Ayurveda. And believe me, I went on to study torch infections and recurrent abortions. 69 patients, a trial study, observational study. And I found success rate of almost 90%. So I'll show you some research data. Next slide, please. Now, this was a very big trial. Sujat was given in 378 cases, 577 were treated on regular modern antenatal care, and wherein other group where Sujat was given, Sujat was in addition to what we gave to these patients. And you can see the age-wise distribution. Next slide. Now, here is something very interesting. If you see that incidence of pregnancy-induced hypertension, mild, moderate, severe eclampsia, and see that the number of the patients who had no PIH, almost 89% of the patients, or almost 90% of the patients, did not develop PIH in a Sujat group. Whereas, if you see, in comparison, there were people with no PIH were only 73%. So significantly, there was a great difference. The moderate hypertension, you can see 5% in Sujat group, 8.2%, and severe only 0.2%, whereas 2% in the control group, where the modern medicine was given. So you can see the difference that ever since I started in my practice, Sujat, I have had not a single case of preeclampsia or eclampsia in my practice. It's more than now 30 years, I can say that I didn't have a single case. Next slide, please. If you see that preterm, IUGR, and neonatal deaths, etc., they were significantly different. What is most interesting is birth weight, average birth weight was 2.82 kgs in comparison to 2.53 kgs in the control group. That means there was almost 300 grams or 250 and above grams of difference. And this is very, very significant. And today, the Indian baby is supposed to be the smallest in the world. And if we can improve the Indian baby weight, we can prevent a lot of diseases which come in middle age, like hypertension, diabetes, etc. And all these cases have got a small weight babies who became adults. They develop these diseases. We can prevent that. So therefore, the key to prevention of these diseases lies in the womb of the mother. Next slide, please. Some other interesting research I want to show you. Panchavalkal. Now, I used to see the women tying the thread around water, pimple, and all these trees, ficus plants. And that was Vata Savitri in a hope that they will have long life of the husbands. They pray for long life of their husbands. I used to wonder what does that mean? So Ayurveda says that Panchavalkal can prevent the infections of the genital tract. Is the best medicine. So at one place you say that worship this plant and worship by females, and at second place you see there is the most important medicine to cure these diseases, sexually transmitted diseases, vaginal diseases, or genital tract diseases. So is it true? That's how my inquiry went into. We had published 4 theses to show that it is a very good antimicrobials. Then we did in animals by introducing intraperitoneal infection. We have studied in case of osteomyelitis. There was a challenge given to me, treat my patients of osteomyelitis. We tried this. And finally, what way it acts? There is something called quorum sense inhibition, is a new method how the antimicrobial action is determined today. We knew only 2 methods, that is bacteriostatic and bactericidal action, but this is a third mechanism where these herbs prevent the bacterial growth and formation by making, the quorum sense, by inhibiting the quorum sense, which is something akin to making friendship by your enemy to enter into house. This is what bacteria do. that is quorum sense. So they make friends of your tissues of the body, and thereby they proliferate, and that is to be stopped with this. Without killing the bacteria, the bacterial growth is controlled, and ultimately infection vanishes. And we have found this is extremely very good in diabetic ulcers. So many cases we have treated in the fractures, in chronic infections which are resistant to many antimicrobials, many antibiotics. So this is how Ayurveda can have a space to create. And the third most interesting research which currently we are continuing to do, we have done sufficient research. One PhD thesis is already being published, and shortly the person will get a PhD degree. And we have shown that Panchagavya could be the next step in increasing general immunity. Today, do you know one of the fanciest type of the treatments they are giving today is fecal transplant, gut into the gut, the human fecal transplant. You know, even as a child, when Panchagavya was given to us during Shravani, I used to hate this. What is this happening? But then I realized as a doctor what it could be. You know, almost 30 years back, I was thinking as a doctor what could be the reason why our ancients were giving this. So I said, as a doctor, let me think. The gut, the stools will, the dung will contain all the gut microbes. That will include tetanus, that will include typhoid, that will include tuberculosis, that will include many such. It will include many viruses. The viruses will be vaccinia virus. It could be so different intestinal viruses, or poliomyelitis virus. So like that, you have number of the intestinal viruses. Now add to that a fresh cow urine, which is acidic, and that will neutralize many of these organisms. And we prepare in a copper plate. All this Panchagavya is prepared in a copper plate. And by that, there is inhibition of these bacteria happens. And add to that now, curd and milk, a neutral nutrition medium, which will help growth of these almost, weak bacteria, whichever they are there. And then how to reach it to intestine. Very interesting idea that if you add ghee, everything will get a coating of the ghee, coating of the fat coating, and this fat coating allows this to go through the stomach, not affected by the hydrochloric acid, and goes to the intestine. And intestine, there are Peyer's patches. There are a lot of Peyer's patches with so much of lymph glands, lymph nodes, and they will form antibodies to all these bacteria. That's one way. And second way, by altering, because we want not the Western cows, which will eat meat. We want the grass-eating, fresh grass-eating cows, and they will produce such bacteria which are not harmful to you. And healthy cow with such a Panchagavya can be one way to promote immunity. And we are also doing now research. We have done in vitro studies on cancer with this. We have done lots of research with C. elegans to show the capacity of this Panchagavya, how it can, alter the immunity and how it can protect the roundworm. So that's how we are taking this Panchagavya program forward. And in time to come, we want to come out with Panchagavya capsules so that it can be given, a fresh Panchagavya can be given to the patients. Next slide, please. Now, I was toying with the idea that today we are only treating the patients. Whereas Ayurveda says, Swasthasya Swasthya Rakshanam. Why don't we do anything to prevent the diseases and promote the health of the healthy people? Now, that can be done because Ayurveda has talked of seasonal Panchakarma and twice Rakta Mokshana in a year. The Rakta Mokshana happening twice in a year is also preventive of diseases. I never understood this. Before, I understood that Rakta Mokshana can reduce the ferroptosis. The ferroptosis is a cause of the cancer. The iron giving rise to free radicals is one of the causes of ferroptosis, and that can cause number of the cancers. Is a new information. So one information which came across to me, that a person who donates blood twice in a year will not suffer ferroptosis. So this is how I think we should start seasonal Panchakarma and also twice a year blood donation, and in identification of the people on Prakriti clusters, to make into clusters and advise them Ahara Rasayana and Achara Rasayana. Pathya, it is very interesting. One Pathya is also a medicine, that is your Haritaki. Haritaki is also called Pathya. So this is given in all the seasons, but in every season differently. If you are giving in Vasanta Rutu, you give with honey. If you give in Varsha Rutu, you give with salt. If you give in Hemanta Rutu, you will give with something else. So like Shunthi. In Shishir Rutu, you give with Pipali. So like that, you have different times, different type of the drugs you have in Ayurveda, which are called Pathya, Dravya, Rasayana, drug therapy. And that's how you can prevent lot of diseases by going through Ayurveda and Ayurvedic advice. And Sattvaja therapy, yoga, pranayama, mindfulness, all other exercises which one can do to improve your mental status. So that's how we should now rethink. So rethink of the integrative approach is where we'll make the Ayurveda is the mainstream medicine, and the modern medicine will be used wherever necessary, from diagnosis to certain treatments. This is how I look at the integrative medicine. And the idea is, the new slogan we must have, kick the sickness out. We don't want sickness. Kick it out and usher in the health and wellness. And that's only possible through Ayurveda, not through any other means. So therefore, we must think of Ayurveda how to take forward this whole goal. Next slide, please. Now, integrative approach in healthcare is need of the time. I've already told you what Lokmanya Tilak has said. Today, more than 2/3 of the conventional medical schools in the United States are members of Academic Consortium of Integrative Medicine and Health. And American Board of Physicians and Specialties offer board certification in integrative medicine curriculum of diet supplements, herbal medicine. But unfortunately, Ayurveda is not a part of it. Homeopathy, natural nature remedies, or acupuncture, Reiki, energy therapies, Alexander technique, massage therapy, yoga, these are all part of that. But I am looking at the time when Ayurveda will be part of that in all the medical colleges in US, and Niti Aayog in India wants one nation, one healthcare system. And for that, a uniform integrative medicine where Ayurveda becomes very prominent in our country. That's what I'm looking for. And next slide, please. Thank you very much. So I think I have created sufficient information on how to make this integrative medicine possible. So therefore, I look at this for future, what we can do as a whole.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Dr. Ma.
Dr. Palep. And if you have any questions, put in the chat box, and we will be happy to answer for those questions. And thank you very much for being and wonderful information. Hello, somebody's talking. Somebody's talking. Cynical. Hello.
Hello.
Somebody's talking. Can you mute yourself?
Why should mute?
Yeah. Okay, now muted.
Yeah.
Samba Shoji, huh? We have an issue. Okay. Anyhow, thank you very much for all of this presentation, and Dr. Palep, and you have covered very well with the in a 2-hour presentation about anatomy, physiology, pathology, and pathophysiology, and disease and treatment aspect. And being you are expert in the field of gynecology, and nowadays infertility cases are growing up because of a lot of unhygienic habits, proper dietary habits are not there in the Western countries. More and more people are suffering with this infertility cases, and in vitro fertilizations, and so many things are happening, and still the success rate is poor. And in the modern science, which is offering in vitro services like that, where the cases when they are failing and also very expensive, and these type of things are not covered by the insurance. And the people who are having open to this type of integrative approach to health. Dr. Palep is here, and he will be happy to consult with us, and people who are living in other countries also, they can be happy to connect with him. He will be guiding you remotely, and he has such a wonderful formulations are also available, and those formulations can be get it through a safer way, because not a lot of people, they may be thinking about the heavy metal contents are there Ayurvedic medicines, but these are the medicines having natural and also herbal formulations, very effective. And also not only herbal formulations, diet, lifestyle, and detoxification like a panchakarma therapies, these are all the contributing factors can be helpful for that. We definitely collaborate with Dr. Palep for and his institution and integrative research center, and that way we will be helpful for the people who can be available for this such a wonderful formulations. I was going through this process like that on the website. If you go and look into his website, Dr. Palep's research institutions, there are some informations are available. We'll be sharing that link also. And it's a
House of Health. There are two companies. One is Dr. Palep Medical Research Foundation Private Limited, and there's another one, House of Health.
House of Health. Okay.
We'll
be happy to communicate this one. And remember to acquire these books. Your personal copy is very important. Scientific Foundation of Ayurveda by Dr. Palep and H.S. Palep, and also Dosha Dhatu Malavignan, that is Integrative Human Physiology. These 2 books are written by him, and whatever the things, nutshell of the information, it is he has presented to you. If you wanted to know more detailed information, more concise information, more practical information, these are all the books are available. Please purchase it. You can purchase from the Amazon, and India available, Amazon US also available, and Kindle books are available.
Also it is available. Yeah, Kindle also it's available.
And Kindle also available, and you can purchase these books and keep it up in these things, and it will be a very reference books for those who are joined the physicians, Western trained physicians. Those it is also highly recommended for them, and definitely Dr. Palep is worth to give such a wonderful knowledge for all of us. We are very, very fortunate to have such a wonderful personality with us. And being a Western trained as well as Western medicine trained and Ayurveda trained in both aspects, he will be a double-edged knife. Thank you very much, Dr. Palep.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Thanks a lot. Namaste.